Hey guys, how you doing today? Doing a late night one of these. You know how sometimes the day just slips away from you? Maybe you wake up a little bit late, or maybe you just can't quite get things put together. That's exactly the day I'm having. So spooky in the dark, spooky in the dark. You're gonna see me today. Well, spooky times for spooky messages. Why not? Today I'm gonna be talking about how the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, comes out with a statement about Canada's housing market, right? They're very concerned about Canada's housing market. Over the last year, when we are in this COVID-19 crisis, one would think that in the midst of such a crisis that housing prices would actually go down, right? Instead, housing prices go up, about 40%, right? An incredible number, an incredible speed at which the cost of this currency or of this commodity just explodes. And if you actually read the IMF report, they do everything they can to really sidestep what's actually happening, to try to talk about the issue in a way that is, so that if you're on the inside, if you're in the government, or if you're in the private sector, in the retail sector, the realtor sector, you know what's going on. But if you're one of just like these illiterate plebs, the way that we all are, maybe you're not going to cotton on to what's actually going on. So guess what? I'm going to completely demystify what's actually happening in the housing market. It's actually extremely simple. So if you're a billionaire, right? If you're a billionaire and you have $1 billion, right, and you're living in a society where your economy and your system is actually in free fall collapse, and you're not actually interested in giving your money to anybody, you're not actually interested in helping anybody, you're interested in putting your money in places where your money will be safe, where the market's not going to collapse, where nothing's going to happen. Well, what are you going to buy? Land. You're going to buy land, right? You're going to buy a lot of land. You're not going to put any amount of money in growing or investing a business. You're not going to put any amount of money in growing or investing some person's dream or any of this kind of stuff. You're literally just going to buy land. And if you're a billionaire, right, you have so much money that when you start buying up land, it actually starts to mess with the price, and you actually start to just become a land speculator, right? So think about it this way. Remember the diamond markets, right? We all heard this story, right? The diamond industry, right? They had carved up a whole bunch of diamonds, and what did they do with those diamonds? Well, they hoarded them. They put them in their vaults, and they created a false supply. And this, of course, created a market where the price of diamonds were super high. While the false diamond, the cubic zirconia, which was like the manufactured fake diamond, which was sold for cheaper, well, guess there were actually less of them, right? So this was a complete market manipulation that the millennials get pinned for saying, like, oh, the millennials killed the diamond market. It's like, well, no, we literally just stopped buying diamonds because we refused to continue playing this game. We knew it was a scam, and so we stopped going along with it. But now the scam has gotten much worse because, unlike diamonds, we can't not have shelter, right? We can't not have these places. And so are the billionaires buying housing and then turning around and renting them out for passive income? No. Well, why not? Don't they want passive income? Don't they want any of that? Well, no, because that would mean hiring a whole property management firm. That would mean having to actually deal with like renting laws. That would mean actually having to deal with any of this kind of stuff. And if you're a billionaire, you don't want to put up with any of that. You're not interested in any of that. You're interested in speculating on a housing market or on a land market, right? That's what you're doing. And what's frustrating about any of this is that when I talk about it, like, it's extremely obvious that that's what's happening, right? Housing prices are going sky high. They're plummeting. They're plummeting. They're jacking right up through the roof, right? Billionaires are making more and more wealth hand over fist. And we still have homeless people, right? There are still people living on the streets. And guess what, guys? We do a census, right? We do a census. We know that tons of this property is empty. We know that it's empty. And we know that it's empty because the owners will keep it empty to jack prices up. So when they turn around and actually sell these, they can sell it for, instead of selling it for $100,000, they can sell it for $1 million. Instead of selling it for $1 million, they can sell it for $2 million, right? They know what they're doing. They're obviously doing it. By the way, if you're a person who bounces out of these videos at around this time, please just leave a subscription, leave a like, any of that kind of stuff. I could use any support, any kind of thing on a day-to-day basis. Really, really helps me out. I'm actually heading home because it's actually raining. It just started right now, so I gotta pop back in. So, the IMF, of course, releases this report saying that Canada needs to respond with policy measures. Well, here's a real simple policy measure, right? Use it or lose it. Very, very simple. You're gonna sit on an empty property? No. This is our housing, right? This is what we need to actually survive and actually live and actually have shelter, right? We can't just have billionaires sit on these properties empty so that they can turn our housing market into like a speculative gambling casino, which is exactly what they're doing. They're not interested in getting people off the street. If anything, they're interested in putting more people on the street, because the more homeless people there are, the more demand there is for the supply that they're hoarding, right? So if they could, they would keep us all homeless, right? Then we would absolutely have to pay them the highest value or the highest number that we actually possibly could, right? They don't want us to be healthy. They don't want us to have a good time. They want our money. That's what they want. Taking shelter underneath the little thing right here so I don't get rained on. More importantly, so my phone doesn't get rained on. And so we should just say, hey, nuts to this, use it or lose it. But we live in North America, a North American capitalist economy where our politicians have been bought, right? They've been bought and paid for. They don't work for our interests. They work for the interests of the billionaire class. And so it's going to take them an entire decade to even admit that this phenomenon is happening, right? It's going to take them an entire decade before they put together a committee to investigate the situation, to take a look and sift through and all of this kind of stuff so that they can release a report that says, hey, billionaires are buying up the housing market and jacking up prices like they did in the diamond market. We know. And it's kind of embarrassing that our political class and our media class isn't just standing up and saying, hey, this shouldn't be allowed. We should simply not allow our shelter to be privatized. Like, we shouldn't allow our shelter to be privatized. But you are living in a society that is completely fine with homelessness, right? You're living in a society that is completely fine with having people sleep on the streets. So don't be too surprised when that extends to you, because that's exactly what the society is structured to do, right? And as I was saying just previously, the more homeless people, the better, right? Because that actually jacks up the price of housing even more. They own the supply, you are the demand, right? So if they can make sure that the people who are making the demands, hey, I would like some shelter, right? If they can make sure that the people who are making the demand are in the worst possible negotiating position, i.e. homeless, desperate, living on the street, then they can set the value of the supply at what they want, right? And this is called rational economics, right? Instead of, what it is, a sociopathic death cult that's taken over the society and is attempting to plunge us into our own despair and destruction. And there does come a point where I have to start asking, like, what's it going to take? What's it going to take for us to actually start to realize that a sociopathic death cult has taken our society over and is going to collapse it? Is it going to take the collapse? Like, is that what it's going to take? Are we going to have to experience the collapse? And I think that we are going to have to experience that collapse as a society. I just don't think that we are empathetic, compassionate, or rational enough to look at a situation that is obviously happening and say it shouldn't happen this way. That we really do need to plunge our society into an economic depression. And at this stage, I think we are actually having a conversation not about how to prevent the economic depression, because we're not rational or empathetic enough to do that. We really are talking about how do we prevent our society from collapsing into a civil war about it, because like that's what we're going to see happen in the United States, right? Like here in Canada, we are putting in support help for our citizenry to a meager level, right? Like even on this like temporary COVID-19 sort of crisis level, we're putting in supports to make sure people aren't just like en masse hurt. Of course, we're riddling it with all kinds of means tests and all kinds of problems. So there are plenty of people who are getting abandoned by this system. But at least on the most mass scale, we're not abandoning the citizenry. America is outright abandoning its entire citizen base. It's just saying to the entire citizenry, you guys can just go off and die. Like they passed this $1.9 trillion bill, and it literally gives like a one-time $1,400 check to people. Like this is essentially saying let them eat cake, right? Like it is just a full wholesale abandonment of the American populace. And when the economy collapses, because guess what, it is going to collapse. Like it's based on nothing, and they are going to lose this Cold War against China. Like it's unbelievable how obvious this is. And once that system collapses, you're going to have a society that is awash in guns while simultaneously being completely abandoned by the political class. And we're going to watch it happen. And so the question that we seem to be answering now is not how do we prevent an economic depression? It seems to be how do we prevent an internal civil war? We seem to be okay placed on that. We could definitely do better. We could definitely try harder. We could definitely make better decisions. Like, here's a good decision. Don't let there be empty houses while we are simultaneously keeping people homeless on the streets. Like the IMF says, oh, you guys should have better policy decisions regarding your housing market. Well, there's a policy decision, right? You have an empty house? Great. Here's a homeless person. We're going to put that homeless person inside your empty house. Story's over, right? Story's over. Like, sorry. Because letting billionaires dominate and control our shelter market, like I don't even call it housing market anymore. Like it's our shelter market. Like it's what we need to have shelter. Letting a group of rapacious sociopaths who obviously don't care about you dominate and control our housing market, our shelter market, is just going to result in more homeless people and more desperation, which is what they want because it's how they make more money. Okay, I'm reaching the end of this video and it's starting to rain and I want to go inside so I don't get rained on. You see how the scale that these guys are willing to gaslight you on, right? That like the gaslighting that exists in our society is enormous. And I am here to tell you, do not let them gaslight you, because they absolutely will. They'll gaslight you about every single aspect of your life until you can turn around and make them money with it, right? Like if you're doing something, a capitalist will make fun of you for it until they can exploit you for money for it. That's what they do. That's how they operate. They're going to gaslight you about every single aspect of your life, including your right to have food and your right to have shelter. Don't let them. You are a wonderful, beautiful person who is working as hard as you can at whatever it is you can do. And just because you're not turning around and selling it to a group of sociopaths who are abandoning you and are actively structuring the society to abandon you doesn't mean anything, right? It means that you love what you do. It means that you are following your heart. It means that the force of the universe that randomly generated you into the society in the first place is pulling you in the direction that you're meant to go. And you should be more beholden to that force and that sense inside of yourself than some man you've never met who is actively attempting to betray and destroy you. Don't let these guys gaslight you. You're a wonderful person. I love you. The world loves you. The universe loves you. Good luck. We're going to need it.